All right, you're ready to go.
Thank you. All right, good morning. Thank you everyone for joining us. This is our October 22nd, 2020 PAG RTA Transit Working Group meeting. So we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order right now. And for introductions, we're actually going to go ahead and do a roll call. So when I call your name, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and stating your name and who you're representing. Thank you. So James McGinnis.
Everyone, it's James McGinnis, Transit Services Manager with the City of Tucson.
Thank you. Chris Blue.
Morning, everyone. Chris Blue, Transit Services Coordinator, City of Tucson.
Rhett Crowninshield.
Rhett should be joining us shortly. He's having some trouble connecting, so I requested that Crystal send him the GoToMeeting link again.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris. We'll go ahead with who's online right now. So Jason Bahi.
Jason Bahi with the Pasquayaki tribe.
Thank you. Jonathan Crow.
Good morning. This is Jonathan Crow with Pima County.
Good morning. Thanks. Is Catherine Skinner online?
No,
Okay.
she isn't.
Okay. Let's see. Lisa Schaefer.
Hello, Lisa Schaefer, Town of Marana.
Thanks. Anna Cassidy.
Anna Cassidy, Town of Sahuarita.
Thank you. And then we have our other members from University of Arizona and Suntran. I know that Alex Chavez from University of Arizona let me know she'll be running late. And then do we have Davida Mueller or Steve Spade from Suntran?
Hi, this is Davida Mueller. I'm Transit Planning Manager at Suntran.
Thank you, Davida. And then we have Dick Roberts.
Dick Roberts, presently President of the Green Valley Council.
Thank you. Good morning. All right. Do we have any other transit working group members online? We're waiting for Town of Oro Valley, either John Hawbaker or Michael Alexander. Okay. Well, hopefully they can join us. I know that they have an item on the agenda that they'll want to participate in. So hopefully they'll join us in a few minutes. And if Crystal, if you can just continue to reach out to them, that'd be great. And then can we have any staff online introduce themselves if they'd like? PAG staff.
Jim DeGroot, PAG RTA.
Good morning. This is Jamie Brown with PAG.
Good morning. This is Carolyn Laurie with PAG.
Great. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is our in-kind form. And as all of you know, this is the form we pass around when we are in in-person meetings. This is an important piece of information to collect for our meeting our local match, gathering in-kind time from all of you. So if anyone here is not paid with federal dollars, could you please state your name?
Yes, this is Anna Cassidy.
Thank you, Anna.
Lisa
Dick
Schaefer.
Roberts.
That was Lisa Schaefer.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Dick Roberts.
Thank you, Dick. All right. Our next item is item 3 on the agenda. And this is our main action item today. This is going over the fiscal year 2022-2026 TIP development, and we'll be looking at the available FTA, Federal Transit Administration funding for the 5307 and 5339 programs, as well as STBG flex funding that's specifically for transit.
Excuse me, Catherine.
Yes, Davida?
Hi, Steve Spade asked me to let you know that he is on, but he cannot talk.
Okay, sounds good. If he can reach out to Crystal, if there's anything he wants to contribute, perhaps there's the chat box. But if Crystal, you can connect with him. But thanks for letting us know, Davida. And welcome, Steve. All right, so item 3 today, we will be going over the project requests that were submitted. Each jurisdiction submitted an application form that was provided by PAG. This is an annual process that we go through at this Transit Working Group meeting to review project requests for available funding. And as I mentioned, we're looking at the full 5 years for the current TIP that's in development for fiscal year 2022 to 2026. Crystal, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the Excel sheet. So we have a summary here. Almost all of you are familiar with this Excel sheet that we use each year during this discussion. And this was also provided to you in the packet material. So you'll see here all of the project requests that were submitted for these 5 years in our current TIP development. And I just want to bring your attention to the available funding. So in our last meeting at the end of August, we presented the call to projects and the memo regarding the funding availability was included in the packet. So you should all have that. And I just want to bring to attention that we have the assumed apportioned amounts from the FTA for 5307, and that is 15,620,000. And for the 5339 program, the direct apportionment for our urban area is around 1.8 million, and that's annual. So you'll see that in the spreadsheet. Does anyone have any questions at this time about the Excel file? I know it's been a year, so I can run through. Otherwise, we can go forward with. I thought that each jurisdiction can present their project requests for these 5 years, and then we can open it up for discussion. Do we have any questions at this time? And you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you have anything to say. Okay, hearing no questions at this time, we'll go ahead. I think Town of Oro Valley is not online, so let's go ahead and start with Pima County. Jonathan Crow, if you wouldn't mind presenting the project requests. And all the applications were also included in the packet, so you can see and follow along there as well.
Sure. Let's see. Pima County is just requesting a continuation of monies to provide ADA improvements to our bus stops and bus shelters. And it's something we've been carrying forward for the last several years, partnering with the city of Tucson for that purpose. I would point out, though, I think it's been characterized on the spreadsheet here as an enhancement, and whereas the city's same line item is characterized as a required element, and I don't think there's any difference between what the county is submitting and what the city is submitting. And so I think what I'm suggesting is that our application be considered requirements and not just maintenance or optional. They're actually ADA requirements to improve the bus shelters. So that would be my suggestion just moving forward. But I've just put in $100,000 each year for over the next 5 years, and that's consistent with what we've been requesting and approved with in past years. So that's pretty much it. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jonathan. And we'll consider that. So Jonathan's referring to the project type. So on the Excel sheet, column D, and that references our regional funding priority tiers. So you can see that all the requests for this period are either the tier 1 or tier 2, so required projects and or maintenance. All right, would the City of Tucson like to go over their projects? And I know you have the bulk of the requests, so if you'd like to just speak to what's different this year, I'll let you take the floor. Thank you.
Hi, this is James McGinnis, and Rhett is going to be backing me up on these. If I as you all know, I'm still new in the city, so I am familiar with these projects. But if there are any questions on any of these, I may be deferring to Rhett on those. So, but we'll just go through starting at the top here. The security for transit and the associated transit improvements, both of those are requirements of the grant, and those are required at a 1% minimum. So what you see there is the 1% minimum based on the assumed apportion distribution of 15,620,000. So you'll recognize that as being 1% of that total apportionment amount. The next one is bus replacements. That's fairly straightforward. I do want to mention that we are still in the middle of trying to determine what the best fuel mix will be for our fleet going forward. So we're looking at trying to determine what combination of alternative fuels we want to introduce. The city is certainly committed to a carbon neutral future, but that how we get there is still a bit of a question for us. So, but typically this category, bus replacements, represents the need to replace our vehicles as they age, and we want to stay on top of that. The more effort you can put into replacing vehicles beyond before they reach their end of life, the better you'll be able to more effectively manage your preventative maintenance dollars. So as vehicles get older, of course, they require more maintenance. So we do want to make sure we stay ahead of those vehicles that are aging beyond their useful life. The next is preventative maintenance. That's fairly straightforward. This is just scheduled maintenance that we want to make sure that we are performing on all of our capital assets. The second line, this is a new line. I do want to mention that we are still in the middle of. I was getting a little bit of an echo there. This is preventative maintenance for real property. This actually applies to real estate, not rolling stock. So things like the Suntran maintenance, Northwest maintenance facility or administration facility. The next 2703 is the Sun van replacement van. You will notice that the dollar amounts for those are quite a bit higher than they have been in the past. Again, this is reflecting that beyond before they reach their.
I'm sorry, James. James, if whoever has their phone, if you could mute yourself, please. Sorry, go ahead, James.
Thank you. Yeah, so as I was saying, that you'll notice that the increased amounts there reflect the city's move to electric vehicles. So some of those new Sunvan replacement vehicles will be electric. If you're familiar with the cost life cycle of electric vehicles, the upfront cost of electric vehicles are quite a bit higher than conventional fuels. However, the hope is that as those vehicles age, their overall maintenance and life cycle costs will be considerably less than a conventional vehicle, so that you recoup some of that upfront cost as you move through the full life cycle of the vehicle. The next, the support vehicles for Suntran, Sunlink, and Sunvan. These are the vehicles that we need to make sure that the fleet, that our supervisors and maintenance folk can get out and support the system where needed. Transit Grant Administration. This is basically funding the City of Tucson's transit administration of the grants. So Chris, myself, and Rhett among other activities that go into that, making sure that the grants are being administered properly. Technology upgrades. This is one where I'm not familiar with all of the aspects, and so if we want to dive into this a little bit, but some of the things that I know we're working on right now are upgrading our radios, a critical piece of our infrastructure, radio communication technologies, as well as our data servers. So important aspects of our being able to keep our fleet moving and tight communication and collecting that data that help us keep things, keep reporting back and keeping us understanding how our fleet is operating.
James?
Hi, Steve.
This is Steve. I might just add in there in the technology upgrades, one of the large projects is replacing the security cameras on the vehicles.
Yes, thank you.
On the buses. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Steve, if anybody has any questions about that after I get through here, Steve is available to answer those questions. And Steve, you might want to help me on this next one too, the Sunlink wheel truing equipment. I'm not very familiar with that. What does that entail?
It's for lack of a better term, a large lathe kind of tool that trues up the wheels on the streetcars. It has to be done to those on a regular basis to preserve both the wheels and the tracks. Right now, when you true vehicles, we have to send them out, ship them out to be done. So what we're hoping to do is, as these vehicles age, we're going to need to buy a truing machine.
Okay, thanks. And then finally, the employee training. That's pretty much what it is, just training for all employees and making sure that we're up to date on the latest management and operations techniques that we need to provide best operations of the system. So that's it. Any questions on those?
Hey, Catherine, John Hawbaker from Oro Valley's on, and we've been on. We're having trouble being able to unmute ourselves.
Okay, I'm glad you're on. Thank you, John. Okay, any questions for James and or Steve? Okay, if there are no questions at this time, we'll move on to the town of Oro Valley. So John Hawbaker, if you'd like to present your project requests, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so ours deal only with bus replacements. You can see it from the third to the bottom line, and none in fiscal year 22. In fiscal year 23, 1 bus, and none in fiscal year 24. In fiscal year 25, 3 minivans. None in fiscal year 26, and that's as far as we're going.
Great,
and those
thank you, John.
Those are over and above what we're expecting the 5310 program to provide for replacement.
Okay, so that's in addition to what you project for 5310?
Yes.
Okay.
And also one other thing, we did have a much larger request in fiscal year 23, but we are going to reduce our fleet size by 3 vehicles. And so that's why fiscal year 23 dropped down to just 1 fleet.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. All right, so then the final application that was submitted was by the RTA, the Regional Transportation Authority, for our Sun Shuttle fleet. So similar to the town of Oro Valley, we're requesting bus replacements in fiscal year 23 through 26. They are in total 19 bus replacements and 1 expansion vehicle. As we discussed last year, the town of Oro Valley and the RTA transitioned to a vehicle replacement model that looks at replacing at mileage as opposed to years of vehicle in service. So the 1 expansion vehicle would be to add to our fleet to allow for total total fleet mileage to be reduced and to be able to have more flexibility to shift vehicles around in the fleet. So any questions so far from the group for what's been presented so far and what we have here?
Catherine, this is Jonathan. Just a quick question on the packet that you sent out. It looked like there was a category for electric bus charging infrastructure. It was highlighted as new, and I don't see that
Yes.
in the sheet that you're showing us right now.
Yes, thank you, Jonathan, for bringing that up. So I actually went ahead and there was not a request. There was not a dollar amount request for that item. So I just went ahead and hit that row just for our conversation today. And there was also there was an additional item that has a tip ID assigned, but had zero value. So I hit that row as well, just for purposes of our conversation today. So these, what you're seeing here, are all the current project requests. All right, so if there are no questions at this time, we'll go ahead and work through this this spreadsheet. So PAG is overseeing this this TIP development process, federally mandated, and I've been advised that we need to actually have all 5 years, so fiscal year 22 and 26, in fiscal constraint. So you can see on your screen, row 30, so the available 5307 funding, you'll see that in fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23, we're in constraint, but we are not for the remainder of the 3 years. So I'll open it up for discussion now. Now that we all know the project requests we have in front of us, I think we'll go ahead and start with fiscal year 22 and 23. So the first 2 years of the TIP cycle are in constraint at this time for these project requests. Are there any items that anyone wants to bring up or discuss for these first 2 years? We do have an excess of $340,000 in FY22 and $285,000 in 23. So what we can do is leave that or move it to one of the items. And the city of Tucson can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the funding cannot be moved from year to year if anyone wants to know that. So.
Hey, Catherine, this is John from the town of Oro Valley.
Yes, John.
I was just double checking our fiscal year 23 vehicle replacement value. And for a cutaway, it's about 80,000. And I don't know why I had put in 67,000.
Okay, Crystal has control of the Excel sheet for us right now. So Crystal, would you mind highlighting that cell? So let's see. For the town of Oro Valley, and you said fiscal year 23, John?
Yes, fiscal year 23.
Okay.
The other numbers are correct.
They are correct?
The other numbers in fiscal year 25 are correct.
Okay, so do you mind highlighting the cell H19, Crystal, please?
Oh, no, a question for you, Catherine. Just for clarification, that's the 80% of the vehicle price that the TIP would pay, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay,
so
67 is right. 67 is correct. Sorry.
Okay.
I was thinking it was supposed to be the total. Sorry, my apologies.
That's okay. Thank you for bringing that up. So all the numbers you see up above here are the federal request amounts. All right. Are there any other questions or items to bring up for the first 2 fiscal years?
Catherine, this is James. We, for the first 2 fiscal years, if there is extra funding available for programming, if there are no projects that any other jurisdictions would like to recommend to add that funding to, we could, the city would likely request that we move that funding to preventative maintenance, but we may need to consult a little bit on that. So I think one item for consideration is that if there is no definitive decision made on reprogramming that funding today, if we could come back at our next meeting with a project idea for that funding.
Okay, thank you, James. That sounds good. I know in the past we have moved excess funding to the City of Tucson's preventative maintenance program, so we'll keep that suggestion on the table. Thanks. All right, we'll go ahead and move to fiscal year 24.
They got a deficit of 219,000. They have to.
John Hobbaker, do you mind muting your phone, please?
Sorry.
No worries. Okay, so would the City of Tucson and or Pima County or Town of Oro Valley like to start the discussion on what to do? We have an excess, or we have in the red for around $220,000, and we need to be in fiscal constraint for this year. So I know in the past we have looked at new projects, and this year we don't have any new projects. As you can see, all the project items have tip IDs assigned to them. And as I mentioned before, and Jonathan brought up the project type, these are all falling under our top 2 priority tiers for regional funding priorities. So I can suggest that we perhaps look at the maintenance items, since our agreed upon priority tier number 1 are the top 2 required items for the City of Tucson. So we could maybe let those sit for now and look at the maintenance items. Any suggestions from the group? And I'll clarify, we are looking at 5307 funding. So we're set on the STP Flex funding source, as well as the 5339 for the City of Tucson's bus replacements that is set aside. So the amount that we're under currently is 5307 funding.
Catherine, this is Jonathan with Pima County. To the extent that it could be helpful, I think we could consider moving Pima County 100,000 in fiscal 24 to fiscal 23. That would reduce the overage by 100.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion. Let me move to the screen. Crystal, do you mind highlighting both those cells? And then if you can just click on the FY24 cell, just make sure there isn't a formula in there. Okay, so if you can just zero that out, please, and make the other 200,000. Okay, so thank you for that suggestion, Jonathan. And again, this document is a working document for the purposes of this discussion, so we can move things around throughout the meeting. Any other discussion items or suggestions for FY24?
This is Steve. I could visit with Rhett and James about some things we could do, for instance, with our technology upgrades and some of those that are programmed for 24, and see if, I think some of it relates to whether or not we got the budget capacity for local funding in 23, and then how quickly we can get up to speed to take on some of those projects. But there might be an option in there that we could talk about.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. Crystal, if you wouldn't mind just highlighting that row. So row 15.
Catherine, this is James. I agree with Steve. We'll go back and take a look and see, as the entity with the most projects, we should be able to find some way to move a project forward potentially from 24 to 23.
Okay, great. All right, so we have noted right now. Changes we've made are the suggestion by Pima County to move $100,000 from FY24 for their project request over to FY23. And that changes our total a bit. And then a suggestion from Suntran and City of Tucson to go back and take a look at tip item number 519 for technology upgrades to see if they could perhaps shift the project request amounts to later years. Is that correct, Steve?
Sure.
Okay.
Or we could move them to
23.
Earlier year.
The earlier year.
Yeah, move something from 24 to 23.
Okay.
Those are security cameras and are happening over a number of years, so we may be able to look at something.
Okay, I'm looking at the rest of the project items. So we're leaving the required projects at this moment, and then we've had a suggestion from Pima County. We've spoken about preventative maintenance, perhaps adding some funding to that. I know preventative maintenance is a priority for all systems, but absolutely for the City of Tucson and for Suntran and the rest of the system. So do we want to look at some of the other maintenance items that the City of Tucson's brought forward? We can also discuss the bus replacements for RTA and Town of Oro Valley. Any suggestions there?
One thing I did want to remind the group of, Catherine, is this is James, is that any dollars that are spent under the preventative maintenance line item for the City of Tucson, some of that funding is provided back to RTA in the form of a credit when the city bills the RTA for services provided under the agreements between the RTA and the City of Tucson. That some of those preventative maintenance dollars come back as a credit against those bills. So there is a regional benefit if this funding goes to preventative maintenance. It does come back and benefits the region as a reduction in RTA's overall liability for services provided.
Great, thank you for bringing that up. And I know that comes up every year. And another reason why preventative maintenance is important, and often we don't take away from that item because it does have regional benefit, as you mentioned. So thank you. Let's see, I guess for the RTA, looking at our bus replacements, we do pursue other Federal Transit Administration funding for our rural routes for bus replacements. Otherwise, it's coming from local sales tax dollars from RTA revenue. So in fiscal year 24, we are asking for 2 replacement vehicles. I'm sorry, 6 replacement vehicles, 2 types, and 1 expansion vehicle. So we could consider moving or taking away one of those replacement vehicle requests if needed. But just adding more detail there for what we're asking for in 24. Do we have any more discussion on these on the fiscal year 24 to 26? And we do have Carolyn Laurie on the line. She is our PAG staff, our tip manager. So if she wants to speak to the federal requirement for having all 5 years in constraint. As everyone knows, we're on a 2-year tip cycle now. And we also have Jamie Brown on the line. So as all of you know who've been through this process before, this discussion usually takes at least 2, sometimes 3 meetings. So I know some suggestions have been made to go back and look at these project requests, amounts, and what years they're applied to. So we can, if we have a motion for that, we can move forward there. Otherwise, we can spend the time we do have. It is almost 11:45, so we could spend a bit more time discussing here as a group, or make a motion to table this item until our next meeting. I'll just let the group know that you can refer to the memo for the notice of funding availability. We are working on a timeline. We are looking to take these recommended project lists to our PAG Transportation Planning Committee in December, but that could be postponed. So just to keep that in mind, that's our timeline we're looking at now. So we could meet again at a regularly scheduled time in November, second week in November, and or earlier to revisit this.
Catherine, this is John from Oro Valley. So you're in 24, you're looking at getting 1 expansion vehicle?
That's right.
Could you get it in 23 instead? And and along with the other line item that we're considering, that would balance out fiscal year 24?
Yeah, we could move the expansion vehicle to 1 year earlier. So for the federal amount for that would be, and it's an estimate, so it would be around $81,000 that we can move from 24 to 23 and see how that works. So.
And then if the technology upgrades line or whatever line that was moves some money, that would balance it all out.
All right, Crystal, if you wouldn't mind changing column or cell I-21. So it's currently 579,900. If you could change that to 499,000. And then we can move, we can add 81,000 to fiscal year 23.
Okay, I've made that.
And I'll get that math for you. So So that'll be
Catherine, I've got the math on that.
you've got
You're
it.
okay.
Great. Okay,
Yep.
thank you. All right, thank you for that suggestion, John. So we've moved that over, so we're closer to the limit there for 24. So as John mentioned, that could come out of the technology upgrades from City of Tucson, as Steve mentioned, or another item. Are there any other suggestions for meeting that delta from City of Tucson?
Catherine, this is James. I think we can go back and take a look at that again, as I mentioned. So I would recommend for FY24 that we perhaps table any more discussion. I think we'll be able to find a way to move some funding around. I think my larger concern is going to be FY25 and 26.
Right.
If we do need to be in constraint for those 2 years. Obviously, the city is requesting a large portion of that funding, and so we will probably need to go back and really look at how our requests are reflected here.
Okay.
Obviously, even if all the other jurisdictions removed all of their requests for those years, we wouldn't be anywhere close to the constraint we need. So,
right.
We just need, we'll definitely have to take a look at that and bring back a revised request.
Okay.
At the next meeting.
Great. Thank you, James. And I appreciate the suggestions from Pima County and Town of Oro Valley as well, to move items. And I think the RTA is willing to move that expansion vehicle. But as James mentioned, it's the amounts are small in comparison. So let's see if we can, is there any other discussion at this time? Does the City of Tucson want to speak about those larger request items for 25 and 26 for the group? If you think that's helpful.
Hey,
Hey,
Jane.
Catherine, it's Rhett. Yeah, we'll come back. We'll have an internal discussion and find a solution that makes sense.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Catherine, this is John at Oro Valley, and I'm not challenging anything. I was just curious, why does it go up from 750 to almost 5 million in fiscal year 25 and 26 for the preventive maintenance?
That is the preventive maintenance real property, and there are a couple things that are happening to our buildings. We've got a air handling unit on our building 5, and then we've got renovations that need to be made to one of the transit centers. So those are some big facility items. I think that we need to discuss.
Okay, great. Thank you for that question, John,
Sure.
and for the clarification, Steve.
These are all things, in just FYI, all the projects that are under preventive maintenance real property has identified items in our TAM plan that are in poor shape and need to be replaced. So what we've tried to do is take the things that are near failure in the TAM plan and move them in to start talking about making those improvements.
Okay, that's a good point. And for the rest of the group, the TAM plan that Steve is referring to is our regional transit asset management plan. So as regional partners, we're all in a group plan. This is a Federal Transit Administration mandated requirement, and it is relatively new. So we haven't had that in our discussion in past years. The plan was adopted last year, or it might have been the year. It might have been a full year now. So, so that's some items that are taken into consideration for additional project request amounts here. So that's a good point.
Yeah, and the good news is that the Transit Asset Management Plan really identifies those things in our systems, facilities and infrastructure other than vehicles that are getting close to failure, so we don't have the kind of catastrophic stuff. But as you can see, when you look down the road at things that could be costly, the bad news is now you got to deal with it.
Right. It does help us all to be proactive, but yeah, it's a lot to consider. So, all right. Do we have any more discussion for this item? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion from one of our members to, make a motion.
This is John from Oil Valley. I make a motion that we table this till the next meeting while they do some background discussions.
Okay, we have a motion from John Hawbaker from Town of Oro Valley to move this item to the next meeting, which will likely be in November. Do we have a second?
I'll second. It's Lisa.
Okay, so we have a second from Lisa Schaefer from Town of Marana. Any discussion on this motion item? Okay, hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 I heard 5. Those opposed say no. And actually, since we are on virtual, if you wouldn't mind just stating aye in your name, so then we make sure we have a majority, please. So I can call out. So City of Tucson.
Aye.
Town of Oro Valley.
Aye, John Hawbaker.
Pasquayaki Tribe.
Aye, Jason Bahi.
Town of Marana.
Aye, Lisa Schaefer.
Town of Sarita.
Aye, Anna Cassidy.
Pima County.
Aye, Jonathan Crowe.
And those opposed say no. All right, the ayes have it and the motion's carried. So we will have this item on our next meeting in November, and you can stay tuned for the date for that. And then our last item, item 4, is adjournment. Before we adjourn, I just wanted to make the announcement that James McGinnis has taken a position at the City of Tucson, and I did just want to personally thank him for all of the work that he has done while he worked at PAG and RTA. We appreciate everything, and we're happy to know that he's still in town and working in the transit field. So we typically have announcements or suggestions for future agenda items. Do we have any at this time?
Catherine, this is Jonathan with Pima County. I'd like to suggest another agenda item for our next meeting, and that is a discussion of broader transit funding issues rather than just focusing on the 5307, kind of a bigger picture discussion item on transit funding in general for a regional basis.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion, Jonathan. Any other announcements or suggestions for future agenda items?
Captain, this is James. I wanted to just say thank you. I appreciate the kind words. I also would like to congratulate you on your promotion to Transit Services Manager at RTA. So very exciting.
Thank you, James. All right, so if there aren't any other announcements or suggestions, any other discussion, we are adjourned. Thank you.